Welcome everybody to the November 19th meeting of the Old Colony Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee meeting. Um, I just asked, in lieu of introductions, I just asked that everyone, if you haven't updated your name, just input your affiliation on there. That'd be appreciated. Uh, just going through the agenda here, welcome and introductions. And then we have two guest speakers today. The first one is Yolando Spinola. He's a senior program manager with WAC Massachusetts. He's going to be talking about some WAC audits that were held in the OCPC region. And then our second guest speaker is also from WAC Massachusetts. He's Brendan Kearney, the executive director, and he'll be talking about the 2024 fatal pedestrian crashes in Massachusetts. And then we'll be going over a bike ped project in the Old Colony region, and then talking about some communications, and then go over next meeting, and then adjourn for 2025. So I guess we can kick it off with Yolando, if you want to take it away. I don't know if you need to share your screen. You're
Yeah,
muted.
I just
There.
need to share my
Okay.
screen here. So I'm going to send the
I'll,
request in order to get that.
I'll stop my share.
Okay, 1 second here. Mhm. Second. Thumbs up if you can see my screen real quick. Okay, great.
Good.
Yeah, thanks everybody for joining us today and giving us the opportunity to share our findings and the experiences that we had in Brockton in 2025. We were able to conduct 4 walk audits in Brockton. And that was in the Montello neighborhood, the Campello neighborhood, the west side of Brockton, and on the east side of Brockton. And these were all about a mile long stretch of area in those neighborhoods. So we are the pedestrian advocacy organization for statewide. Obviously, maybe many of you might know, or some of you might not know. We've been doing this work for over 30 years. We were previously known as Walk Boston, and we changed our name to Walk Massachusetts in order to reflect the work that we have been doing, which is trying to see how we can make walkability better for people across the state. And we very much think about walkability in regards to the intersection of equity, and we want to make it safer for everybody, regardless of race, identity, age, ability, to move around their community safely. The idea around these walk audits were for us to see how we can gather the key inputs people need in order to shape walking in their communities and to generate the right recommendations for our decision makers to improve things in Brockton for residents. Um, so we wanted to come up with both short-term and long-term recommendations. And then the idea is that these insights could be used by residents to continue to do advocacy in Brockton, because some of the stuff doesn't happen overnight. You're gonna need that ongoing advocacy of folks locally to push for change. We were able to collaborate with the Old Colony Planning Council on these walk audits, and they were a huge partner in allowing us to connect with people locally and think about the right places to conduct these walk audits. We received funds from the Office of Grants and Research that allowed us to do this work in 2025. And we're happy to say that we actually got further funding from the Office of Grants and Research to continue to do our work in Brockton, to do more walk audits, and even to look at other places in the Old Colony Planning Council region that there could be future walk audits. So that's a conversation that we want to have with our decision makers and folks at OCPC around, like, where should we continue to gather community insights around walkability. So for those who don't know, walk audits are our community engagement mechanism and tool for gathering insights around how to improve things in regards to sidewalks, crosswalks, pedestrian amenities. We want to identify what the obstacles are, what the opportunities are, alongside just regular people who are experiencing the roadway. We want to understand those things, wrestle with them together while out there in on the walk audit, and then brainstorm what the right recommendations are, and then draft some type of report that we can share with key departments, decision makers, different agencies like MassDOT or whoever has jurisdiction over the roadway, in order for us to see the built environment changes that we need in order for people to have a safer walking and more comfortable walking within their community. So this wasn't these four walk audits weren't the first walk audits that we've conducted in Brockton. We have conducted three others in the past. So I've actually conducted a walk audit the year prior in 2020. Well, actually, 2 years prior in 2023 at the DW Fields Park area. So we worked with Wildlands Trust and their Green Team, which is a group of young people that they have, in order to conduct a walk audit in of the DW Field Parks area and the different areas that gives folks access to the park. And we identify some different challenges and opportunities that exist there. We conducted walk audits downtown prior, and we have conducted walk audits near the Legion Park area of Brockton. A lot of these results have impacted key improvements in Brockton, and some of these findings exist on the city's website. And it's stuff that has impacted other planning efforts. So the walk audits that we conducted were basically, they all happened over the summer. There was slightly different temperatures. May was actually that May day in Montello was actually slightly cold. So we were it wasn't like the most, springish of days. But yeah, we had a walk audit on May 21st in Montello. We had one in Campello on June 26th. The West Side one on July 23 was actually a really hot day in Brockton. And then on the East Side, we had one on August 14th. Again, all a mile long, and we had a variety of different folks who participated from a variety of different interests in Brockton. So we had folks who were with Brockton Bikes who attended. We had folks who were with the Brockton Workers Alliance who attended, a lot of OCPC staff and team members. We had folks from Haitian Community Partners who showed up to our walk audits, and just general community members who are passionate about this, and people who maybe have a business in the general area attended our walk audits. So we had great participation. We noticed that there are a lot of things that are working right in Brockton, that are heading in the right direction, that we wanted to elevate, and that because we did present this to the city council the other day, and we wanted to elevate what's working in Brockton and what's trending in the right direction for walkability in Brockton. And these were things that we also heard from residents during the walk audits. One thing is Brockton does have a lot of density, and that density is, could support folks to walk to key destinations. And there's a high demand for a walkable, safe community. There's a lot of challenges that does exist on the roadway in Brockton. And people are hearing about that on the news a lot, and are hearing about it on social media, or they're seeing it themselves in, day to day when they're walking around or they're moving around their community. So they know those challenges, and they're demanding from their decision makers something different. So that's great that that demand exists. There's a lot of history in the city when it comes to infrastructure and how it has been built out. And a lot of that was originally built out for walkers, but it just needs to be updated and see how it could be modernized and reinvested. And then there's a lot of multimodal strengths in Brockton. Brockton does have a great public transportation system with the RTA, Brockton Area Transit, and then there's the MBTA that goes through Brockton. And there's more and more folks who want a more bikeable Brockton, like Brockton Bikes, and who want to see bike lanes in the city and want to see safe biking infrastructure. So there's a lot of things that are working great for Brockton. So we want to see like how can we leverage those things to address some of the challenges too, and to help Brockton just become safer for folks to move around. Some things that folks saw during our walk audits that were common amongst almost all of the walk audits were speeding and just some reckless driving that if we didn't see them on the walk audits ourselves, folks just have experienced it when moving around the community, and they elevated it to us in general. So this is a key challenge that needs to be addressed, is just slowing people down and making sure folks who are driving through and to Brockton are driving safely. Lack of pedestrian signals. So sometimes they're just non-existent at key intersections, or if they are existent, they are not adequately adjusted. So it's really short for different users. Or when you press a button, it just doesn't activate. Or folks are confused around like, does this one work or not work? So that's something that we noticed. Lack of shade. Brockton, on the outskirts of the city, does have a pretty great tree coverage, but downtown and in key and environmental justice block areas of the community, it does suffer from the heat island effect, and pedestrians need that accommodation in regards to shade infrastructure, in regards to trees, for people to move around. Specifically, older adults, they need that respite when it comes to like moving around their community on foot. If there's not that shade coverage, people are just less likely to choose walking as a way to go to destinations. And that's the same thing with when it comes to our transit infrastructure. We need more benches in Brockton, and we need bus stops that have shelters for residents. And there's high demand for that, and there's just not those amenities in place where they need to be. Waste management, just like challenges in regards to different material that are basically tripping hazards on the sidewalks are an issue, and it just impacts people's comfort when moving around on foot. So that's definitely something that was really obvious, specifically in Campello, but it did come up in some of the different other neighborhoods. And in Montello too, we noticed a few different mattresses that were in our way when moving around the community. So those are challenges that need to be addressed by the city, and just needs to be addressed by a variety of different partners. So disability challenges does exist in Brockton. ADA compliance of how things are being built out, or how can we make sure that Brockton prioritizes adding in ADA compliance in key spots is something that we heard from a lot of different participants during our walk audits, and we noticed them ourselves. Sometimes the ADA amenities that do exist that were maybe just recently put in were just not put in the right way. So they might need some type of training for engineers and folks who are getting these contracts to learn how to properly install these disability resources that folks need. The existing crosswalks that currently exist in the city, there's some confusion around like how, there's inconsistencies. Some places there are great crosswalks and they are laddered and zebras, and some places they're not existing, and then there's places that they're just two lines. So we would love to see if there's more consistency with crosswalks across the city. And vegetation was also something that came up as a problem. So for neighborhood specific things, like I mentioned, the ADA police came up. This is a great example of a neighborhood where there was some recent improvement that were made in regards to an intersection. The Main Street and Wilmington Street intersection recently had some new pavements added, but there's still a lot of challenges that exist at this intersection, a lot of conflict and tension that exists there for drivers, and it makes it really difficult for pedestrians to move around. As you can see, you can kind of barely see it here, but the ADA compliance that currently does exist, it actually puts people who are in need of that amenity in harm's way because they're going to not use it appropriately, and it would lead them right into oncoming traffic. So there's an opportunity there to make sure that our engineers and people who are getting these contracts are installing them in the right way. The MBTA site in Montello, I think it could benefit from some type of improvement in regards to like how visible it is for people in the neighborhood. We did see a lot of vegetation that was kind of overgrown near the MBTA spot. It has been slightly cleaned up since our last walk. We did provide our feedback to the MBTA, so they did get folks out there to cut it back a little bit. But there's still an opportunity to improve wayfinding and the aesthetics of that site for folks in the neighborhood. Um, and then just the lack of shelter and the lack of benches at key BAT stops is something that we noticed during our walk audits too in the Montello neighborhood. Um, the Campello neighborhood, we definitely noticed that this specific intersection here, Nilson and Main, is really difficult for all road users. Drivers are basically coming off of Nilson or East Nilson onto Main Street, have to inch their way completely over the crosswalk and have to try to navigate themselves onto Main Street. Usually it's hard for cars to let them either cross the road onto the other street or to join Main Street. So that is makes it really difficult for walkers who are moving around. And they do have laddered crosswalks here. And this was an intervention that happened after some local advocacy of folks and some intervention that was made by MassDOT in regards to a road safety plan that went into effect. So there was some intervention, but we would love to see some further interventions in this area to make it even safer for pedestrians. Near Vicente Supermarket, there is a lot of foot traffic, which is great. It shows that this is the area that there's a lot of demand of pedestrians for the roadways and the sidewalks, but there's just a lot of disrepair in regards to the sidewalk infrastructure, lots of tripping hazards. And there's also a need for adding some type of transit amenities like bus shelters and benches. And it would be great if the city can work with the Vicente Supermarket to add those type of accommodations. So yeah, for the West Side walk audit, that's actually where we noticed pretty wide sidewalks, a slight buffer with the road, and some spots where there were great tree coverage. Like in this picture here, you can actually see that there are some respites with shade, but then there's some other spots where there isn't. So it would be great for the city to continue to work with Green the Gateway City to add the necessary shade infrastructure in the neighborhood. And it would also be awesome if they could work to add additional crosswalks on West Elm Street. So this walk audit was pretty close to West Middle School, and there's a lot of students who are walking to and from school. But there are long stretches of West Elm Street where students don't have access to adequate crossing. So they have to wait until they get really close to school to have access to a safe crossing. And it's also makes it difficult because this is also a road that a lot of drivers are using to get to the highway. So they might be in a rush, or they might be a little, frustrated about getting to work or something. So it makes it difficult for students who are walking to and from school if they don't have those crosswalks. And then this neighborhood also, we noticed that there were challenges in regards to ADA compliance, specifically near West Middle School. So it'd be great if those curb ramps could be added in for different road users and the students who are using the West Middle School. And then on the east side, this is the walk audit that really amplified age-friendly needs, basically. Like if they could be some age-friendly accommodations could be made. Uh, um, we conducted this walk audit near the Caffrey Towers in on the east side, and we noticed that many of the sidewalks were in disrepair, or there was a variety of different material that would make it really difficult for people who have mobility issues if they're using walkers or they're using some type of mobility device like a wheelchair. It'd be really difficult for them to move around. In fact, folks would have to be in the road in order to access the different shops or to go to medical services and to go back to the Caffrey Towers. They would basically have to be in the roadway in order for them to navigate this area. Some of the different uh, access points for the shops also had really wide entrances for the vehicles, almost like slip lanes, and that makes it really difficult for people who are navigating in this area. Um, and then there's just lack of key amenities like benches and shelters. So it'd be great if there could be some updates in regards to the age-friendly infrastructure and for a variety of different people who have needs in the neighborhood. And then we one challenge that came up in a lot of these different walk audits is how can Brockton access key funding for them to make these improvements? And we highlighted how Brockton has just was recently awarded a Complete Streets funding from MassDOT, and this was the first time that they received that specific line of funding. And it'd be great for them to continue to apply for it in future years. Brockton did adopt Complete Streets ordinances in the past, I believe like in 2018-ish. And it took until 2024 for them to receive the funding for Complete Streets, but they need to continue to think about how can they implement Complete Streets outside of the MassDOT funding structure, and then they should continue to go after key funding with MassDOT to improve the roadways using that methodology and that format. Shared Streets for All, BAT has actually landed that grant a few times, and so has the city. And it'd be great if they can continue to go after that line item to improve the roadways for a variety of different road users. So we elevated all these funding streams for folks who attended our walk audits in our walk audit reports, and we'll continue to work with folks in Brockton to see how they can access these pieces, because that is one big hesitation or challenge that a lot of folks have is like, we just don't have the funding locally in order to make these improvements. So they really need to think about like, how can they access key funding from the state, or think about like, how can they work with other partners to make key improvements. Some general policy recommendations that came out of our walk audits is Brockton needs to continue to work with partners like Brockton Bikes, the Transit Matters, us, obviously, Walk Massachusetts, the Brockton Workers Alliance. There's a variety of different folks who are thinking about transit equity and improvements to improve people's quality of life and safety. And if they can continue to leverage those partnerships, things can continue to move in the right direction. We think that it's important for Brockton to really consider hiring a transportation planner that can think strategically and robustly around how to improve the infrastructure for all road users and can help Brockton land key grants that they need to improve the roadways. And then the traffic commission is uh, the probably the main mechanism that many residents have in order to um, voice their challenges with the roadways. But we think that there's an opportunity to reform the traffic commission and improve community voice and the engagement that currently exists with the public, because there is a high demand for folks to participate in transportation planning locally, but right now the mechanisms that currently exist are um, they could be improved. So that's something that we heard during our walk audits and from engaging folks locally. Tip funding, I think right now Brockton does go after and land tip funding, but it'd be great to continue to just be strategic and think about how can Brockton really ensure that the funding that they're receiving in connected to tip is also accommodating to pedestrians and making key pedestrian improvements. And then some of the challenges that we saw out in our walk audits, a lot of them can be improved with the right public-private partnerships, like the challenge with waste management. If Brockton can really lean into working with local businesses and seeing how they can add in uh, just key amenities like waste bins, it would go a long way to addressing some of the different challenges that we see out there. And there's other things too, like seeing how businesses can support with maybe adding key information around like safe crossing or how people can participate in greening the gateway cities. So things like that can go a long way too, we think. And we believe that just reducing speeds across the city would help to address some of the different challenges that we're seeing with injuries and fatalities on the roadway. Brockton hasn't yet taken advantage of MassDOT's ability that gives the city council and the city ability to lower speeds in key um, high density areas. So it'd be great for the city to reduce speeds in places that there are a lot of pedestrian demand and usage of the roadways. That's near schools or near places like VCNT supermarket. Because we know that as we lower speeds and if there is a crash, the chances of somebody getting injured or dying on our roadways goes down significantly. So yeah, we think that the city council has a lot of ability to make a difference on short-term pieces. So it doesn't we gave them some quick, easy wins that they can move forward on. We think safe crossing is definitely possible if they have some type of initiative that changes the standards of crosswalks across the city and just says out and basically just communicate to the DPW that our standard for crosswalks are zebras, striping, or ladder crosswalks. And this is how we're going to do it in every place that we will have a crosswalk going forward. Right now, there's no standard in place. And then it would be great if there was an initiative to just repair sidewalks and improve curb cuts. This would probably be something that the city council would need to think strategically around. Is there a prioritization plan on how to improve these different pieces across the city? You can't do it all at once, but there might need to be some type of plan in place to improve these things. Lighting infrastructure, benches, and addressing the vegetation piece. That can be a quick win for the city if they take that on. And then reducing speeds, the city council has the ability to do that and make that request to MassDOT in key places to reduce our speeds and make things safer for all road users. And we also believe that See Click Fix, which is a key platform that is used by many residents to report issues. It would be great if there was just an option or category for roadways and sidewalks. Right now, if you have a challenge with that, residents have to put it under the other category or have to label it in a a creative way. But it would be great if there was a way to um, categorize things in a really specific way. One, it gives residents the ability to know that that is feedback that the city is looking for, and then it can allow the city to track those needs going into the future and to see how those needs are being addressed. Um, and then, yeah, we think that the city should be continuing to see how they can address some of those different common problems going into the future. Some of the more long-term pieces that we want the city to consider taking on is ADA compliance. Is going to be hard to take on because there's just so much of it, but there needs to be a plan in place, and there needs to be a way for them to move on this. This also connects to a difference recommendation that we have, which is the city getting that transportation planner and prioritizing that, and that could be one of the tasks that they are working on is creating a plan for improving ADA compliance across the city, along with maybe coming up with a plan for traffic calming and knowing what type of tools that are currently available to the city can be utilized and where can it be utilized, like curb extensions, like road diets, and using key interventions like road rapid flashing beacons, because right now it's really up to traffic commission to figure out like where these things are executed, and there's not really a methodology in place for where these interventions are being executed or when what could trigger these things to be put out there in the roadways. And um, there are also things that they won't use that might be in the toolkit, like um, uh, traffic humps. So that would be something to see, like, are those options that they want to add back into their toolkit and options that should be used for making our roads safer. Um, and another piece that we think is important is just empowering the traffic commission again to improve participation of folks in the city who don't have maybe they don't have they're not city representatives, or they are not connected to transportation planning, but have more connection to resident voices. So is there any way that we can reform the traffic commission to really strengthen, one, just community engagement and community communications, and resident feedback? So I think it's important for the city just to consider reforming the traffic commission going forward. And that might also be connected to the transportation planner piece. How can the transportation planner be a member of the traffic commission in future years? And then our last recommendation is that the city really look at current legislation at the state level connected to automated enforcement. Many of the challenges that also exist in Brockton is just lack of enforcement, or lack of um, resources for enforcement. So we would love to see like how can the city think about enforcement going forward, and we think the automated enforcement with the safety camera legislation might provide a solution for the city to consider. And we think that the city council should at least uh, consider making some type of comment or participating in what's happening at the state level with that piece of legislation. So those were basically our feedback, and this also connects to some of the challenges that exist on our roadways, which Brendan will just share more about in regards to what's happening with crashes across the state, and he'll reflect a little bit about some of the different challenges that exist with injuries and fatalities in Brockton. But yeah, thank you for listening to me rant a little bit about our walk audits in Brockton. And as a Brockton resident, I really appreciate you all just like, yeah, taking into consideration what we had to share.
Thank you, Yolando. Does anybody have any questions for him?
I have quite a few that are either questions or comments, but I could also wait after Brendan. It's really up to you.
I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
you can ask them
yeah.
now.
Go ahead, Jed.
Yeah, go for it.
One specific question. I was want to clarify. You said that something along the lines that the city hasn't taken advantage of the ability to lower speed limits. And is that a program or setup where the city can sort of like a home rule thing can be empowered instead of having to ask permission every time? Because what I've heard at the Traffic Commission currently is if they want to go below 30, they have to present that specific situation to MassDOT. And so this was under discussion, I think, with Lisa Drive, which is in Ward 6 in the northeast part of the city. And the city and the Traffic Commission is, in fact, pursuing a lower speed limit there. I think it's either 20 or 25. I also observed on the west side, so one of the side streets just off Pearl Street, sort of up near where um, Pleasant intersects Pearl. So there's a side street that I guess was being used as a cut through by folks to avoid the light on their way, like heading towards Good Sam, basically. And I also noticed there that the speed limit is either 20 or 25. So we have definitely lowered it in some cases. So I guess that's my question: is there something we could be doing differently, like getting sort of a blanket permission, or is it always we have to go every single time? And I see Brendan's answering that too in the chat, but
Yeah, I'll let Brendan chime in on this. I can also, but Brendan knows this really intimately.
Yeah, I mean there is like the blanket ability to reduce the default speed limit from 30 to 25, which as you see on that page, you can scroll down and see the number of communities that have done that. That requires the some sort of decision-making body within the city to send a letter to MassDOT and say, we want to reduce our default speed limit from 30 to 25. Some of the challenges with that is that's like the unsigned roadways. So like it's like, well, we need to let people know that the speed limit is lowered. The that particular lowering that speed limit, they put up signs on the entrances to the municipality saying our community has a default speed limit of 25 mile per hour on our roadways. So if it's not signed, it's supposed to be 25 miles per hour. Um,
right.
and Galen can probably chime in here as well. He's definitely dealt with a lot of this before too.
Well, yeah, and Brandon's totally right on this, but the other side, maybe to your point too, Jed, is if it's a state-owned road and the
Yep.
municipality wants to lower it, and people from DOT, please correct me if I'm wrong here, but in an act to reduce traffic fatalities that got signed in 2022, there's a 90-day window that the agency has to respond to a municipality. So the ask does have to come from the city or town, and it goes to DOT or DCR, whomever the state agency is. And the law requires a 90-day response from the agency, either up or down. And if they don't respond within 90 days, then the new speed limit goes into effect based off the municipality's request. So it still does need to come from the city or town. And what the law did was basically force the agencies to respond. Because what we were seeing, there was a
Right.
lot of like, oh, maybe we'll do some studies, and then that never happened. So it kind of lights the fire under that. But I think to Brendan's point, there needs to be more than just speed limit signs that are changed. There will probably need to be design speed changes, like narrowing lanes, putting up
Right.
new paint or something. There's a whole speed management toolkit that the DOT accompanies with what they put out there, and Brendan might be putting this in the chat now as well. So I think that toolkit combined with the new law, should be enough for the city to feel confident to lower the speed limit on a state-owned road.
So yeah, so no, the question specifically, we're talking like a residential road, for example. So not state owned, which we have many of those that are used as cut throughs. And I think what I would advocate for, or I think what would be great is if the city, if it was easier for the city to lower the speed limit on, let's say, a suburban street, right? That's definitely not state owned. And at the risk of having, I'm not trying to have a larger debate about the speed limit stuff, but I will tell you from where we're coming from. So I go to every traffic commission meeting. involved in a lot of different ways, almost never regarding bike lanes, by the way, just about safety and that kind of stuff. And I think, and then maybe my attitude in general about Brockton is jaded. I'm willing to admit that. Like I'm always looking for sort of bare minimum things for us to get to. But I just think to get Brockton down to 30 would be great. And so for us to go to 25, as you say, I think would be a hollow, or as you imply, would be a very hollow thing. I think one would expend a lot of traffic commission time that I would rather spend on getting them to agree to speed humps, which right now, as a policy, they are against. Speed bumps, humps, whatever you want to call it, they're against that. So I would rather expend that energy on that than have a whole debate with them and the rest of the city about lowering it to 25. But then again, as you implied, and I think is totally true, that's not going to make any difference. Like to have to change Brockton's fundamental speed limit to 25 without any kind of enforcement, any kind of physical interventions to our roads. I would rather fight to try to get people to 30. And we also, speaking of mass bike, this is can you see my sign? I can't see myself. Oh, that's our newest sign. So the World Day of Remembrance helped fund paid for these signs and through mass bike. So that's our new thing. We're going to deploy 100 of these across the city, literally trying to, spread the word, slow the hell down. So that was my question on that. And again, as I heard where the traffic commission talk about it, they seem to think that for every single street, so let's say Lisa Drive, a suburban road, they have to go to MassDOT and ask permission for that. And I have no idea how onerous it was, but it made it sound like if they want to take a specific street and drop it from 30 to 25.
No, I mean, yeah, Brockton has a lot of city-owned roadways, so I think like there are statewide roads in the city, and I think like those may be more challenging to navigate. But I think there's so much city-owned roadway that I think like the city could easily intervene and reduce the speeds on those without a lot of barriers.
Okay. My other stuff was hopefully shorter because they're just more like comments. So traffic commission, I was saying to Yolanda the other day, I really should look up the statute and see what it says because the traffic commission has made it sound to me like, and I think to others, that members of the public can't be on it as per statute, per ordinance. And I just pulled it up. In fact, there are two members of the public, two members representing the public to be appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the city council. So I think the problem we have now is a practical problem that those two seats are occupied by the retired chief Galligan, who's a walking encyclopedia. So whenever there's a lot of institutional memory, and whenever an intersection comes up, he can literally tell everybody in the room exactly about that intersection. And so there's pluses and minuses to that. He's very skeptical about bike lanes, for example, et cetera, but he's a wealth of knowledge. So I think they would be very hesitant to move him off for a civilian. And the other person I would assume is Steve Hook, is occupying the other seat, and he is the head of emergency management for the city of Brockton. But I don't see anything in the ordinance giving him a seat, whereas the ordinance, as you know, gives a seat to police, fire, a planning board representative, and one or more city councilors. So I there's an opening there. I think on a practical matter, I'm not sure that certain people like myself would actually get appointed just because of the politics. We just had a very contentious mayoral election, and the other guy won, and I'm not sure he would appoint me, just to be really blunt. So we might have to figure out if we want to advocate for the new mayor to appoint someone. So to be clear, we have an opening here. We have a new mayor after 6 years come January. So it is a very great opportunity to maybe just reform the traffic commission through some of the appointments that are made or which staff people are told to be part of it. And so we might have to be strategic about that. And I think we should probably discuss that offline. But I guess the good news is there are two quote unquote members of the public, right? The ordinance doesn't force the city to make them civilians,
Mhm.
but there is an opening there. And then my other, I want to definitely endorse the transportation planner idea, and maybe, I don't know whether we think about it in a more expansive way or maybe think about this as two roles. But you've got the transportation planner in the sense of like the plans, right? Strategic plans and connecting the dots. We want to intervene at this intersection. You had said this in your city council testimony, Yolanda, right? So we decided this intersection, something's a priority. Well, there's going to be engineering. There might be DPW. So we need like a person to just coordinate that amongst the city departments. But I also feel that there's a need in the city for there's never someone responsible for what happens on the streets, from seeing it
Mhm.
from beginning to end. Yes, in a sense, DPW is that department, but as we know, they are overwhelmed, and the commissioner is overwhelmed. And so I think part of the thinking was the transportation planner would help take some of that off his plate so that someone could focus on it. But so specific things like you alluded to, the ramps being installed backwards or the tactile strips are backwards, right? No, someone in the process in the city of Brockton did not follow through on that, didn't do the punch list to make sure it was done, right? And that could be because things are separated, right? Street lights. It's rumored that the street lights on Main Street are backwards, which is why the street is poorly lit. Again, someone there was not tasked with being responsible for that. We have another example after accidents. We have light poles knocked down. I had did this video and discovered, there were 3 live wires sticking out of the ground where a light pole used to be by the Hagler Monument. Nobody had caught that, right? So I don't know whether that we feel like we might dilute the transportation planner to have them also involved with stuff like just inspecting the streets and but in a way we need
Yeah.
like an ombudsman or an advocate for the user of the street, primarily the pedestrians, to because if it's within someone's dashboard that also includes refuse, picking up the trash and potholes and all that stuff, as you know, it gets completely lost in the sauce. So I'll stop
Yeah,
there.
I think, Jed, it definitely just like the transportation planner hopefully starts the process of overall restructuring and reforming things in regards to transportation planning and implementation in the city. It's not going to be solving all the problems. It's not going to be, the the thing to fix all the issues, but I think it will start moving things in the right direction. And I think we've seen success in other communities where they have created the transportation department or have at least added a transportation planner, and things have started to at least trend in the right direction.
So I see John York has his hand raised. I just want to let him have a chance to ask a question.
Um, yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
great. So thank you, Orlando and Walk Massachusetts for everything you do. I really enjoyed your presentation. Just a disclaimer, I'm not a resident of the Old Colony Planning District. I live in Bourne on Cape Cod, which abuts the Old Colony District, but I like to keep tabs on bicycle pedestrian progress around the state. I noticed in your presentation, you called out that public participation was difficult. And Mass DOT, last I knew, although they won't answer questions about it, is currently rewriting their agency-wide public participation plan. They had an abortive public comment period, which they never posted to tell the public it was open or closed until
Mhm.
after it was closed. But I believe they would still accept comments. And if Mass Bike has, or Walk Massachusetts has not submitted that comment directly to the entity preparing the rewrite of the participation plan, I think that would be a very good thing to do, and I would strongly encourage you to do it. Their draft of the new plan is very sort of everything's fine, everything's wonderful, we have wonderful public participation. And I think they might need to hear some of the challenges or opportunities for improvement, especially from a respected entity like Walk Massachusetts. So I would strongly encourage you to get in touch with Mass DOT, inquire the status of that, and whether or not they tell you they're accepting comments, simply submit your comments to the Office of Civil Rights and Civil Rights, and there's another term there, but anyway, there's the Office of Civil Rights within Mass DOT apparently is the office that is preparing the new public participation plan. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, John. I think you definitely, it's great that the state MassDOT has that process, and even at the regional level we have a process, and it's all connected to federal funding around public participation, and making sure that it's done in the right way. But my recommendation is more for at the local level with like things like the traffic commission. How can we improve public participation there, and making sure that they are really one, making it clear to residents that they could participate, and uh, um, making the minutes really easy for folks to understand the agenda items. So just like improving public participation on local transportation changes and opportunities. So the state level stuff and the regional level stuff, I would say, is actually for Brockton, those entities are doing the right things and are moving in the right direction. And we definitely should look at providing feedback to those entities. But I think my recommendation is really connected to what's happening at the local level in regards to like the traffic commission, or just lack of transportation planning engagement in general. If there is any local transportation planning that is happening, there's very little engagement of the public. And that's why our walk audits were so successful, is they provide an opportunity for folks to participate in providing their insights around the challenges that they see on the roadway at the local level. Folks are looking for those opportunities to chime in.
Right. So thank you. So if I might just rebut that slightly, the willingness of the public to participate in transportation planning, whether it is with their municipality or the state or the regional entities on the Cape Cod Commission does a lot of the transportation planning, is driven by Mass DOT's policies, because the public associates participating in transportation planning with participating with Mass DOT. And to put it quite bluntly, most of the people I know who have a serious interest and knowledge of and desire to participate in transportation planning in my town, which is the town of Bourne, have given up, and they've refused to because it's psychologically painful to participate with Mass DOT. And that's not a joke and a laughing matter. And so I think Mass DOT needs to be aware of that. And I believe that that really is an issue that comes down to participation even with your own town. And when there's a political divide, if the town sides with Mass DOT, the public just walks away because they know there's nowhere to go. So, so I really think it is a local issue and has to do with participation in general, and one that both Walk Massachusetts and Mass Bike should take seriously and raise at the state level while they're preparing this new public participation plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, and respect everyone's time. I'm going to keep the agenda moving forward. Brendan, if you want to take it away with the 2024 fatal pedestrian crashes.
For sure. Yeah. Let me make sure I can share my screen. Yep. Okay, great. I can skip my first two slides because you already know about Walk Massachusetts at this point. This is going to, can everyone see the slide now? with the QR code on the bottom left. Yes, great.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, this is the slides that I shared at MassDOT's Moving Together conference, looking at our fatal crash report. We release this each April for the last 4 years. It looks at fatal crashes involving pedestrians in the previous calendar year. So I'm just going to hit on some of the highlights, but if you do want to dig more into the report yourself, I just put a link into the chat to the ArcGIS story maps, and there's interactive maps there as well. I'm not going to cover everything in this presentation because there's a lot more there. Big picture, there were, close to 370 fatal crashes across all modes, and 78 of them were pedestrians. That, basically 1 in every 5 was a person walking. So the areas I'll hit, which communities were involved, where the crashes happened, ages of the people behind the wheel, which we haven't shared in previous reports, but then also the people they struck and killed. That was some feedback that we had gotten from people in the past, like who's behind the wheel. Then the types of vehicles that were involved in some of these crashes, and then a little bit of a rant of what's not included in the fatal crash data, but should be. 53 places had at least one fatal pedestrian crash, and 9 of those municipalities had multiple pedestrian crash deaths. It's an overwhelming list. It's not just big places, it's not just small places, it's places big and small all across Massachusetts. And Brockton is on this list. We were just talking about some of the walk audits. Brockton has also had at least 3 pedestrian crashes, along with Springfield and Boston, each year that we have released this report. We are looking at the fatal crashes because that is the data that is most readily available to us. But we also took a look in this report at injury crashes in the city of Boston because they have made that information available through the Vision Zero Boston effort. And Boston committed to Vision Zero in 2015, so it had been 10 years of data, and we wanted to look, have things change. And injury crashes have gone down. So COVID happened, and then things didn't revert back up to, well over 700 injury crashes. So this is a good sign that the work that had been happening in the city of Boston, adding more raised crosswalks, adding speed humps, and getting the DPW to a point where they were okay with adding speed humps in certain areas. We're really nervous that there had been really a pause on so many street projects, a very political pause, and I think this just reinforces that we can't go backwards. Like we really need to. It's a compounding effort as more street safety infrastructure with bump outs, raised crosswalks, and speed humps. Like as we're slowing people down, it's making it safer for folks. This looks at where those crashes are happening. The larger walking person, like those are 2024 crashes. All the smaller ones are from 21, 22, 23. And the colored areas. So this is an interactive map. If you are on the story map, you can zoom in more and click on them. But it's showing that are the areas that have been identified as environmental justice census block groups. Those are places where a lot of the crashes are happening, and especially with pedestrians. 2 out of every 3 happen in one of those environmental justice census block groups. These are places that have experienced disinvestment over the last 50 years, and like we really need to do better by folks that are exposed to high-speed roadways, more pollution, and more. We all deserve to live in a place where it can be safe to walk around and safe to breathe the air. Who's behind the wheel? We are seeing people of all ages. It was kind of interesting here that the 2 biggest age groups are that 65 to 74, and then also the 25 to 34. There really has been a specific focus on driver training for younger drivers, as people are first learning to drive and receive a license. But when I see this, I'm thinking that we need additional educational outreach to everyone. I'm 42. I learned to drive when I was 16 and a half in New Jersey. The roads are very different now. Like there are different things out there. There was no green paint, there was no red paint, like there were no buffered bike lanes, etc. So like I really think we need to get back to thinking about the either the license renewal or some other effort to incorporate some driver retraining. I used to coach high school cross country and track. I had to go through a concussion training protocol every single year, every single season. It was a quick online process, but like the technology is out there now where we should be doing more to give people more information about how to drive safely on our roadways. The last piece here is that at least 10 of those incidents of drivers that were over 65, the person that driver struck was also over age 65. Um, I'm not exactly, I don't want to necessarily draw conclusions from that, but it's definitely something to consider, like slower reaction time for both ends of the spectrum there. So like, how are we making sure that we're making vehicles safer for drivers and also those vehicles safer for the people outside the vehicles. If there is so much tech inside the vehicle that it's overwhelming to someone behind the wheel, if they're in a sticky situation, like all the more reason to slow people down so they have better time to react. And this looks at the people that were hit. Older adults were hit and killed more often than those in other age groups. I think the important thing here is like uh, people over age 65, uh, they represent 18.5% of our population. So nationwide, that's around where the fatal pedestrian crash victims lands. It's 18.6%. But here in Massachusetts, it's well over 37% of our pedestrian fatal crash victims are over age 65. And they have been overrepresented each year that we have done this report. So I think that also underscores like if we want to make sure that people can age in place, age in community, we should be doing more to create walkable communities and make it so people feel safe to walk around their community. Thinking about more efforts for age-friendly communities and, the different ways that AARP and Massachusetts Healthy Aging Collaborative are working to put, age-friendly communities at the forefront. There were out of those 78 crashes, we were able to find 75 of the crashes had the information filled in for driver vehicle data. Two of the ones that didn't have the information, there were multiple vehicle crashes where it wasn't actually clear which driver or vehicle hit the person. Um, so, more than half of these were passenger cars in 2024, and 38.7% were light trucks, which is you see my little tiny asterisks there. That is a real catch-all category. That's all vans, minivans, pickups, SUVs. And also, both of these are light trucks. Um, they are very different vehicles, but they are in that catch-all category. Um, I am 6'3". I'm standing in front of those. On the right is a 2011 Ford Ranger. And on the left is also a vehicle from Ford. That's a 2018, I believe it's like the Ford F series. So it's like a Ford F-150 or F-250. Um, in actor reduced traffic fatalities, which was referenced earlier, make and model of vehicles involved in crashes is supposed to be publicly available for crashes. It's not a required field, so we noticed that 2024 was the first time that it was supposed to be included. It's not often filled in, but it is a start. Being able to parse out which type of light truck involved leads to very different crash outcomes. If I was struck by either of these vehicles, I would end up on the hood on the one on the right. Meanwhile, I would be hit and pushed down into the road in front of the vehicle on the left. Much different potential outcomes from a crash like that. This was my warning that we know we're looking at data that's not yet final here, but we feel pretty comfortable, especially after 4 years of doing this report, that the numbers for the fatal crashes are mostly stable. And I looked up in the Mass Impact Crash portal just before this presentation in October, but when we published this report, 369 total traffic deaths and 78 were people walking. And then October 26th, 364 total traffic deaths, 78 pedestrians, people walking in 2024. So the number's mostly stable. Sometimes we know those crashes did happen and a person passed away. They were killed. They might get excluded from a data set after a FARS or non-FARS determination. FARS is the Fatality Analysis Reporting System. It's a nationwide census providing NHTSA, Congress, and the American public. This is their official definition, providing NHTSA, Congress, and the American public yearly data regarding fatal injuries suffered in motor vehicle traffic crashes. So what does that mean? That means sometimes they exclude crashes that have happened on the roadway and leave them out of the data set. This is their shorthand of what gets included. So a person needs to die within 30 days of the crash, 720 hours. Why is that problematic? Our hospitals are better now than when FARS was started back in the 70s. Also, this does not apply. That only applies to transportation. Someone who suffered injuries in the Columbine shooting back in 1999 passed away this past year. That was ruled a homicide. It is counted in the homicide numbers back to 1999 for that incident. Why are we coming up with a 30-day number when we also know the 2024 data set is still open? So why are we having that imaginary line of 30 days, 720 hours? We're leaving data out there. Also not included, road rage crashes. This is something specific to the OCPC region. And there were at least one or two crashes this past year in Brockton where people used a vehicle intentionally to strike another person outside the vehicle and they passed away. That number is excluded from the transportation data set as well. And I think that's a huge problem because if we're thinking about safety on our roadways, we should also be thinking about if people are now using vehicles that are larger and more aggressive and they're marketed as more aggressive, if they are now using them to hit people on purpose, like that feels like something that should be in the wheelhouse of transportation professionals to grapple with, as well as the people who are dealing with homicides and stuff like that. We should be able to understand that, and let's not double count it, but we should be able to understand that when we are going to look up transportation data. The last thing I'll leave with, and I left people with at the Moving Together conference, is ways to take action. There's safety camera bill, and there's also the act expanding truck safety requirements. These are both two pieces that are moving in the State House that folks should absolutely contact their elected officials about, giving communities, other ability to regulate things out on their roadways and make it safer. The last one that does not have a bill yet is intelligent speed assist. That is basically the way it has been rolled out in some other states is similar to an ignition interlock for people who have been convicted of OUI. They make it, if people are found to be frequent speeders, frequent super speeders, they have an interlock on their car where they are not allowed to speed above the speed limit. And instead of a governor that fleets have used before to not let drivers go more than 75 miles per hour or whatever they cap it at, this it's intelligent. It actually knows that, oh, I am now on a 30-mile-per-hour roadway in Brockton. Oh, I'm now in a school zone. I can't go more than the school zone limit, 20. Oh, I am now switching back to a 40-mile-per-hour roadway. I can't go more than 40. So I believe that's been passed in a couple places now, and there's a pilot actually going on in the city of Somerville. So really excited to see how that will be going. They're using it on some of their fleet vehicles. So that is the very, very short version of some of our crash report, and happy to answer any questions. And I did drop the link in the chat in case you want to dig into the report yourself. There are other sections as well.
Thank you, Brendan. Does anybody have any questions before we move on? All right. Let's move on to Sean, if you want to talk about the bike ped project in the region. Let me just reshare my screen. Sean, you're muted.
My apologies. Yep. So thank you, Kyle. For those of you who may not know me, I'm Sean Bailey. I'm a senior transportation planner here at OCPC, and project that we will be discussing today, with also some updates from MassDOT District 5, is Project 609052, intersection improvements at Center Street, Route 123, and Plymouth Street in the city of Brockton. The proposed work for this project includes a reconstruction of the intersection, likely with a new traffic signal. It will begin approximately 500 feet west of the intersection to 250 to 300 feet approximately east of the intersection. Work will include relocation of curbing, ADA compliant sidewalks and ped ramps, new signage and striping, as well as some combination of full depth reconstruction and milling and overlay, as well as new traffic and pedestrian signals. I know we have Cheryl Ann Senior from District 5. Do you have any other updates on this project, Cheryl?
Yes, please. Again, Cheryl Ann Senior. I'm the Assistant District Transportation Planner for District 5. I can tell you that on this, the Brockton project, they've completed the intersection control evaluation process, and 100% design submittal is expected in June of 2026.
Okay.
I also can report on Whitman, if you would like me to.
Yeah, sure. If you'd like, I apologize we didn't get a chance to add it to the presentation, but one other project that we were looking at is Project 613643, as Cheryl mentioned, in the town of Whitman, corridor improvements on South Avenue, Route 27. What updates do you have for that, Cheryl?
Well, this particular project is just starting the intersection control evaluation process, and we anticipate receiving a 25% design submittal from them in January 2026. So shortly.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Cheryl.
You're very welcome.
Does anybody on the meeting have any questions?
Yes, Sean. A question either for Cheryl Ann or maybe someone OCPC can speak to this. So I hear June. That's for me. I remember hearing about it September. I'm worried that the project's going to get kicked to the next year. So can you speak to what the deadlines are for design for in order for it to go out for bid, and that it doesn't get kicked to the next year?
We do have schedules that where they suggest this is where we think we'll be for, say, 75% or 100%. We do take that information and determine a potential advertisement date. The intersection control process can be quick and straightforward, or it can be lengthy and complicated. And so these schedules are periodically updated as the design progresses. Of course, the further along the design we get, the easier it is to start pinpointing these things down. So I can tell you what we are looking at as far as a schedule for Brockton. Right now, we're looking at an advertisement. This is the Brockton or the Whitman, the Brockton project.
Brockton, please, yes.
Brockton. So we're looking right now at a potential advertisement for June of 2025, but it's really still early for us to be able to pin it down.
So I guess not understanding the process thoroughly, is there some deadline where if something's not done by that deadline, it pushes the advertisement later. And I guess related to that, if the advertisement isn't done by some certain point, do things end up in another fiscal year? Like, that's my question.
It certainly can. I don't know if there's anyone there from OCPC that wants to add where they fall into this process, but obviously we have to work through everything and get through the various design schedules before we can certainly advertise something. So
Right.
I wish I could speak on that. The better person to speak on it would be Bill McNulty, but he is out on vacation. So Jed, if you have any whatever questions that you have on this project, please feel free to send them to me, and then I will forward them to Bill so that he can answer it when he returns.
I can add that there is a concerted effort made between DOT and the MPOs to get these projects out and keep them on schedule as much as possible. But again, there are certain things that you can only plan for so much, and the complications, they arise whether it be something happens in the area while the design is occurring, all the way to funding issues. There's different things that color it, but we make every effort to get these projects out in there, and hold their ad dates that we can.
Right. And there's no criticism implied. I just want to, at the same time, as you might imagine, we want to make sure that the foot is on the gas pedal, so to speak. So like on a practical level, when I talk to a lot of residents, a lot of times these intersections that are in fact fall under MassDOT or are actually scheduled for TIP, they speak about those intersections. We just had this horrific accident just last Friday morning at Quincy and Center Street. And as we know, that's scheduled to be done, the entirety of that part of Center Street into Abington, but not till 2029 because it's such a large project, right? So, so I tell people, well, as far as I know, it's scheduled to go for bid. I actually was quoting September 25, so June's even better. Sort of like trying to set it, just let people know, when this might happen, and also if it's possible, is it 26, right? So that's where the question's coming from. And in the case of this particular project, I mean, I can hear the accidents out my window, and that's 500 feet from me, so it's a particularly bad intersection. So yeah, we appreciate anything you are doing collectively to keep all this moving. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Jed. Thank you, Cheryl. Does anybody else have any questions? Okay, thank you. Back to you, Kyle.
All right, thank you. So moving forward, just next item on the agenda is just going over some communications. Just a few of them for Easton. There's a project sidewalk installation on Lincoln Street. This work included installation of granite curbing, asphalt sidewalks, driveways, and drainage structures. And I reached out to the town of Easton, and this project has been completed. For Duxbury, Washington Street sidewalks, this work was expected to begin September 8th of this year, and that's supposed to be going for 10 weeks. This is along two sections of the street, Surplus Street to 430 Washington Street. So we're at about that 10-week mark. I tried reaching out to Duxbury. I don't know if anybody from Duxbury is on the call, but I'm not sure if that's completed yet. But since we're almost at the 10-week mark, I'm expecting it might be completed.
I don't see anybody from Duxbury on the call.
Yeah. And then moving forward, Plymouth Select Board advances electric bicycle safety regulations following the rising injury concerns. And this proposed regulation would require e-bike registration, mandate minimum age requirements, restrict where the devices can operate, and establish penalties for violations. And this would make Plymouth one of the first communities in Massachusetts to pursue such extensive controls on the rapidly growing form of transportation. And then Town of Hanson, the police department has been awarded just over $21,000 for municipal road safety grant. And this funds, they'll be using the funds to participate in 5 statewide traffic safety enforcement campaigns. And this will be the winter impaired driving, distracted driving, click it or ticket, summer speed, and summer impaired driving, as well as 1 pedestrian bicycle enforcement campaign. And these campaigns, they're going to be running through September of 2026. And then in the town of Abington, there's a virtual design public hearing for the intersection improvements at Route 18, Bedford Street, and Route 123, Brockton Avenue. And that's going to be held Thursday, December 11th from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. There's a QR code to register for this public hearing. And then finally, the Mass Trails Grant round for 2026 is now open. This opened on November 1st. The submission deadline is February 2nd, 2026 at 11:59 p.m. I've provided some links below here for materials, and there's actually going to be a Mass Trails 2026 grant webinar just to go over this grant round for anybody who's interested, and that QR code is provided. Does anybody have any questions on any of the communications? So our next meeting is going to be February 18th, 2026. I don't know if anybody else has any final questions, comments. I did have one question for Yolando. If anybody from other communities has like an idea of a walk audit in their town, are they able to reach out to you to like get on a schedule, or how would that work?
I would definitely say connect with us, send us an email if if you're interested in having a walk audit. And yeah, we are looking at walk audits in other parts of OCPC's region, at least one to see how we can continue the efforts that we have started with the Office of Grants and Research. So we do want to conduct one other walk audit outside of Brockton connected to this grant year. So feel free to let me know or email Kyle. And because we'll be connecting to OCPC to get their insights around what's the next community or place to conduct a walk audit.
Great, sounds good. Yeah, so I appreciate Yolando and Brendan from Walk Massachusetts being here for their presentations. Everyone involved in the conversation, questions, comments, it's great. And I'm gonna have to start blocking off at least like an hour and a half for these meetings now. Yeah, so I hope everyone has a good Thanksgiving, and we'll see everybody in 2026. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Very informative.